The television world was set ablaze when veteran broadcaster Megyn Kelly delivered a takedown of Prince Harry so brutal, so unapologetically direct, that even Harry's most ardent defenders struggled to shield him from the backlash. What was supposed to be just another media appearance quickly transformed into a global reckoning for the Duke of Sussex, as Kelly unmasked him in front of millions, shredding the carefully curated image Harry and Meghan have worked tirelessly to maintain. It wasn't gossip. It wasn't whispers. It was a full-frontal assault of facts, receipts, and raw, uncomfortable truths that left Harry visibly rattled and the world captivated by the spectacle. From the very start of the broadcast, Kelly wasted no time in addressing what she described as Harry's self-inflicted identity crisis. With her trademark confidence and razor-sharp delivery, she laid out the contradictions, the hypocrisies, and the carefully polished lies that have turned the once-adored prince into one of the most polarizing figures of the modern royal era. She reminded viewers that Harry has, on countless occasions, slammed the royal institution, while simultaneously profiting off his royal heritage, turning the very title he claims to despise into a lucrative brand. The live audience was stunned as she declared that Harry had not escaped the monarchy. He had commodified it. Harry's face told the story. A man used to carefully rehearse interviews and softball questions suddenly found himself on the receiving end of pointed accusations. Kelly pressed him on the infamous Netflix deal, a project marketed as their truth, but widely criticized as a polished propaganda piece riddled with contradictions. She reminded him how he lambasted the press for invading his privacy, only to then orchestrate a 6-part docuseries detailing every private grievance, every royal slight, and every family dispute for the entire world to consume. The hypocrisy was impossible to ignore, and Kelly's words cut deeper than any tabloid headline ever could. The broadcast became more than just a media clash. It was a public dismantling of Harry's narrative. Kelly seized on his contradictions about military service, pointing out the irony of a man who had once championed discipline, loyalty, and honor, only to abandon those values when they no longer serve his brand. She reminded him of his public attacks on his brother William, his father King Charles, and the institution that gave him privilege and protection for decades, contrasting it with the image he tries to project as a champion of unity and compassion. In those moments, Harry was not just being challenged, he was being exposed. As the exchange intensified, the audience sensed the unraveling of Harry's composure. He attempted to interject, to spin the narrative in his favor, but Kelly was relentless. Each counterpoint was met with another fact, another piercing observation. She didn't just expose the inconsistencies in his words. She revealed the hollowness of his entire persona. The Duke of Sussex, once celebrated as a rebellious royal with a heart of gold, now appeared as a man adrift, clinging to grievances and contradictions that no longer carried weight in the face of cold reality. The middle of the program became the turning point. Kelly began peeling back layers of Harry's public statements, dissecting his claims about mental health advocacy, and juxtaposing them with his often destructive behavior. She highlighted his frequent attacks on the press, while simultaneously cultivating media deals that depend entirely on the same spotlight he claims to loathe. The hypocrisy was undeniable, and for once, Harry had no polished PR defense to fall back on. But what truly stunned the audience was when Kelly pulled up direct comparisons between Harry's own words from past interviews and his recent statements. The contradictions were glaring. In one clip, Harry lamented the dangers of airing family matters publicly, while in another, he casually recounted private royal disputes for the world to judge. Kelly's team had done their homework, and a live exposure left Harry cornered in a way he had never been before. It wasn't just an opinion. It was evidence, presented in real time. The fallout was immediate. Social media exploded with clips of Kelly's most cutting lines, and hashtags mocking Harry's humiliation began trending across platforms within minutes. Analysts and commentators weighed in, many of whom had previously defended the Sussexes, admitting that Harry's carefully crafted image had taken a devastating blow. What should have been a controlled media appearance transformed into one of the most damaging moments of his post-royal career. The end of the broadcast delivered the final, crushing blow. Kelly, with deliberate calmness, told Harry that the world was tired of his victim narrative. "You wanted freedom," she said, "but what you really wanted was profit without accountability. You can't escape your royal identity while simultaneously selling it." The silence that followed was deafening. Harry's pride, his carefully rehearsed defenses, and his public persona all seemed shattered in that instant. He attempted to respond, but his words faltered, drowned out by the thunderous applause from the live audience. The episode closed not with reconciliation, but with a sense of finality. Harry had been challenged and defeated. For a man who had spent years crafting his own version of events, this was a moment of reckoning that he could not control, spin, or edit. The brutal truths had been spoken, and they had landed with devastating precision. What made this confrontation so monumental wasn't just a humiliation. It was the exposure of contradictions that had long simmered beneath the surface. Kelly's dismantling of Harry's narrative validated what critics had been saying for years, that his grievances, while once sympathetic, had transformed into a lucrative but hollow brand. And in the unforgiving spotlight of live television, there was no escape, no second take, no carefully managed edit. The clash between Megyn Kelly and Prince Harry did not fizzle out when the cameras stopped rolling. Instead, it ignited a firestorm of reactions that spilled into global headlines, drawing both praise and outrage depending on which side of the royal divide one fell on. For those who had long been skeptical of Harry's media crusade, Kelly's blunt confrontation was a vindication they had been waiting for. A moment with a veil of polished victimhood was finally ripped away in front of millions. Yet for Harry's defenders, it was seen as a cold and humiliating ambush, another attempt by the press to tear down a man already bruised by trauma and betrayal. But regardless of interpretation, one fact was undeniable. Megyn Kelly had turned a television segment into a cultural flashpoint, and Harry had walked away from it diminished. The aftermath was brutal. Social media platforms erupted with clips of the exchange, some slowed down and replayed, showing Harry's visible discomfort, the tightening of his jaw and his awkward silence as Kelly unleashed her barbs. Viewers dissected his every micro-expression, noting how the once confident prince seemed suddenly fragile under the weight of her questions. Hashtags like Royal Reality Check and Harry Humiliated trended within hours, dominating timelines and sparking debates that reached beyond the usual royal gossip circle. Commentators from both sides of the Atlantic chimed in, with American pundits praising Kelly's courage, while British outlets seized a moment to underscore Harry's fall from grace. It wasn't just a televised interview anymore. It had become a global referendum on Harry's credibility. But what truly stung for Harry was not just criticism. It was a realization that Kelly had done what many others had failed to achieve. She had cornered him with his own contradictions. When she asked him how he could preach privacy while selling personal revelations for millions, Harry's response was evasive, stammering, and ultimately hollow. Kelly didn't let him wriggle free, pressing harder until his answers collapsed under the weight of their own inconsistencies. To an audience already growing weary of the Sussexes' narrative of perpetual grievance, this was a crack in the armor they had long suspected existed. Kelly merely exposed it, and Harry, unprepared, had no shield left to raise. Meanwhile, Meghan Markle's absence during the live broadcast sparked its own wave of speculation. Some insiders suggested she had deliberately distanced herself from the appearance, aware of Kelly's reputation for being uncompromising and unwilling to bend to royal sensitivities. Others claimed Meghan was furious at how Harry had been handled, allegedly believing that the show's producers had set him up for a takedown. Yet, her silence in the immediate aftermath only deepened the impression that Harry was on his own, left to stumble through a battlefield that his wife might have strategically avoided. In a partnership that had so often been presented as united, the optics were troubling. One half visibly wounded on live television, and the other nowhere to be seen. As the dust settled, what emerged was not merely the story of a tough interview, but a symbolic turning point. For years, Harry had positioned himself as a truth-teller, a disruptor unafraid to challenge the monarchy's internal mechanics. But on that stage, under the sharp lens of Kelly's interrogation, the script flipped. Instead of being the one dismantling royal hypocrisy, Harry himself was cast as the embodiment of it, a man who had fled royal life only to build an empire on cashing in its secrets. Kelly's words were not just sharp. They were damning, painting a portrait of a prince who could never fully reconcile his disdain for the institution with his dependence on its legacy. The ripple effects extended to the royal family itself. Palace insiders, often cautious about directly commenting on Harry, reportedly saw the exchange as a moment of vindication. For years, Senior royals have refrained from answering Harry and Meghan's accusations directly, adopting the mantra of never complain, never explain. But Kelly had delivered the rebuttal they never could, and she had done it without any royal titles, status, or heritage. To many within those walls, it was proof that time and truth were catching up with Harry faster than he could control. And yet, as damaging as the encounter was, it was also magnetic, far from fading into obscurity. Harry's humiliation became another chapter in the ongoing saga that continues to enthrall the public. Every stumble, every clash, every controversy feeds into the same cycle, drawing audiences, sparking debates, and reinforcing the sense that Harry has become less a royal and more a character in a never-ending global drama. Kelly may have shattered his pride on live TV, but in doing so, she may have cemented his place as the most polarizing figure the modern monarchy has ever produced.